In today's video, what I'm going to talk about is something called unit testing. And it's exactly what it sounds like, but I want you to understand that this is on a very, very small scale, a very small unit of testing. Okay, right down to the single function or method level testing. So with that testing, the reason we would want to do these unit level testings is we want to test out every possible scenario of, let's say, a specific function. Okay, and so some of the reasons why we would want to do that would be, I'll give you one example. So let's say that 6 months, a year from now, the client that you built this web application for, he comes to you and says, hey, I want to make all these updates to my website. So can you change them? Okay, so I don't like maybe the way this is looking. Okay, or I don't like these this code here. I just, there's things I want to update. And you start to think, well, you know, it's been quite a while since I've even looked at that code. So what happens when you get in there and you start messing around and you start rewriting code and you break something? Okay, so you break something that actually worked. So what unit testing allows you to do is kind of avoid that issue. Okay, you can make these tiny little unit tests to guarantee or to ensure that the things you've created once are actually going to continue to work. And they're going to work each different iteration of all the little minor functions that you've put in there. So one of the things that you know, you'd be looking at doing is, let's look at this for an example. Okay, we talked about doing gets. Okay, these are all get functions. Okay, here's one here. There's another get. Okay, do we have any? We've got some posts. Okay, are there any deletes in here? But you can see that so far this has been a whole bunch of get and post style of methods, right? So you want to be able to get in there and test all these things out. And the other thing is, like, let's say you don't go into the future. Let's say you're doing it right now. You certainly don't want to be sending out an application that has a whole ton of bugs into it. Okay, so you know, where I add things here, I go to add to cart, and there's things I just don't like about it. Like you can see right there, something I did. I actually had 2 items chosen, but I hit the add to cart button. Okay, maybe I can go back and see that. I did this twice, right? I said 2 bag of chips, 1 ginger ale, but I hit the add to cart here, but it, you know, didn't really reflect everything. So maybe that's something you don't like. Okay, maybe there's functionality that you just don't like in the program. So what you can do is actually create these little tiny micro level unit tests. So we're going to say at the function or method level, these are the tests that we're going to have. Okay, so this is really why we want to get into unit testing. And there is a lot of really good stuff that you could probably watch on this stuff. So if you know, go into here and we look at unit testing, there's a whole bunch of really good resources that you could probably go and look at. So this, what is a unit test? Here's a bunch of articles in here. This one is a MVC unit testing tutorial with a video. Like, so I would encourage everybody to go ahead and do some extra research on unit testing. Here's a mind map of how a unit test would run. Okay, so definitely go ahead and do that. So if you look at this, unit test needed for 100% or close code coverage in products controller. Okay, so look at all the different methods that we could potentially go in and do unit tests on. Okay, these are just examples. Now, keep in mind that each and every one of these would have, let's say, 3 to 5 different unit tests being run on them. Okay, so really that's what the focus of this video is going to be, is on unit testing. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And it's going to be one sort of introductory, simple tutorial video on this time around. Okay, so let's get started into unit testing. I'm in my products controller, and I've gone down to this line 53. This is my products create. Okay, and I've got the create method here, and on this line here, line 56 and 57, you can see that I've basically got two small units that I can do tests on. And so what these do, if we go out to the actual website, what happens is, let's say I go to products and I say create new. Okay, that new create product is what I've got going on here with this line 56. Okay, and it populates the list of categories in the view, and we can test that. Okay, so we look at our list here. This is what's going to be populated. Okay, and then the other thing is that other test. This is, we can check that we're actually getting the right view. Okay, so there's two tests that we could probably do just alone inside of this create method, and two things that we can actually test for. Okay. So we definitely need, we would run a test to check that we actually have a list of categories. Okay, and that's what we're going to do here. We got to check that we have that list. And then the other issue is, okay, we're going to check that we are returning the proper view. Okay. Now I could try to run a test that combines the two, but I don't want to do that. And in my understanding of unit testing, that would probably be a pretty bad idea. And so it would be better. You've got two possible outcomes or two possible things that you want to happen or two actions that you want to take place. So it's better to actually run two separate unit tests when you have two separate outcomes that you're looking for. Now, you might kind of ask, well, why not lump them all together? What's the big deal? But the issue is, if you lump them both together, and if one of the two fails, how are you going to know which one actually failed? Okay, so if you have two separate tests, then you know for sure which one was the failure. And that's a big part of why we're doing this, is we're trying to catch failures or bugs in our code. Okay, so if you start to clump things together, then it makes it much more difficult for you to go ahead and debug this. And don't forget, you're not just trying to do this for now. You're trying to do this for your future self, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years from now, when your client comes back and says, hey, can you do the updates? Okay, and it's better that you can run these little unit tests as individual entities as opposed to clustering them all together. Because I think what'll happen is you'll just end up getting more frustrated with the unit tests and probably start all over, which is not what you want to do. So I want to talk about a different thing that's actually called TDD, or test-driven development. Now, it's a different methodology than what we're talking about here, but it's similar enough that it's worth mentioning. Okay, so what test-driven development is where you actually write all of your unit tests first before you start to actually go out and start developing your entire website. Okay, and that's so you can pre-consider or design well enough everything that you know it can do or that you expect it to do, versus writing the code and hoping that it can do something. This is the reverse. You're saying, I know what it must do, exactly how I want it to do it, and I'm going to create the ability to test those methods or those assumptions. Once I have all those testing tools in place, then I'm going to go create the code. Okay, and then I'll use my test to validate the code that I'm going to build next. So TDD is different, but it's not so dissimilar that you're still involving unit testing. Visual Studio comes with a bunch of built-in testing tools, and that's what we're going to work with to make our unit tests. So for a lot of this, I am going to use the products controller. Okay, but what I am going to do is just create one more controller, a very, very basic controller that doesn't use our database. Okay, but it's just going to be for the purposes of unit testing, and it's going to be very simplified. So I don't want to start off doing a unit test that uses a controller that is attached to a real database, because it's going to get a little bit complicated if I do that. So we're going to go over to controllers. We're going to click on it, right click. Okay, add controller. And of course, we're going to pick an empty controller. So we'll do empty controller there, and we're going to call it dummies controller. Name doesn't really matter. Okay. As long as you've got it identified like this as an empty controller. We're not going to use this for any other purpose than to try some very, very basic unit tests. So I'll go ahead and hit add. And there it is. So all it gives us is this controller with one method here. Okay, the index method, and it just gives us enough of a framework to do some very simple unit tests. So now that we have the controller, we're going to go to views. Okay, and in my views, I'm going to do right click on that, add a new folder, and we're going to call this one dummies. Okay, and enter. And of course, in our dummies, I'm going to right click on there and do add a view. And I'm going to go with razor view empty. Okay, and it should default to index, which is what I want. I want a razor view index. That's the default that I'm happy with. Okay, so razor view empty, and it'll be called index.cshtml. So I'm going to add. And you see that I get this screen right here. So I'm really quickly just going to put some content in the middle of the page. Okay. And we're going to say, welcome to the dummies index view. That's all. Nothing fancy at all. Okay. And I'll go ahead and save that. So I just want to let you know that at the time of this recording, I'm actually on my Azure. Okay, so a couple of strange things have happened this week. One, I can't get into my local database. That's okay. But the other thing is I'm running this from Azure right now. And something that's happened, I did actually do a pretty large, substantial, I think 2 GB update on my Visual Studio today. And they've changed this GitHub interface. So looks like the way it's running is if you have a new change to make, you can type in your new change, and let me go into the code here. How about I do it this way? So if I go into here, welcome to the new dummies index view for unit testing of controllers. Okay, just as an example. So if I was expecting before I had this Team Explorer and all that kind of stuff over here, but it's changed now that I've done this new thing. So I'm going to write update to dummies index view. Okay, and the next thing I'll do, I guess, is just I hit commit all. Oh, sorry, I need to save. It looks like I lost my comment. Or did I lose my comment? I don't think so. So then what happens is, yeah, you can see that the comment went into here. So it's in this outgoing category. And so If I go back to here and I'm just operating in here, that's okay. But if I look inside the GitHub thing and then I hit this, it says 1 outgoing, 0 committed. So if I click on that, sorry, not that there, I go to here, that's the new push button. So I push that and you see that this should change and drop actually behind the line there. Okay, so it updated and it says update to dummies/index view. So that's been updated now. So if I go back to just concerning myself with the code and everything like that, this has updated my GitHub, which then in turn updates my Azure. Okay, so then from my Azure, I'm actually running my website. So if you can see here, you'll notice that the Azure is running. Okay, and if I refresh that, hopefully it'll refresh and I won't have to start a new version of this. But let's just check it out and see what happens. This line here should update. It didn't, so it tells me that right now what I'm going to have to do is this. Click on a new version of it and do dummies. Now, in your case, all you're going to have to do is go up to your local host and just do the /dummies, and you should get this printing out to your screen. Okay, and in fact, what I'm going to do is change this instead of a P to H1. Okay, lowercase. Okay, and I'll save that, and it's going to have to sort of do the long way around. So what I'm going to do for you guys is to just pause that out of the equation. Okay, so that you don't have to sit through all of those changes. Just know that if you're doing this on a local host, you should be fine with any of the new changes after you save it. So you can see that I actually went in and I changed those from a P tag to an H tag, and now I'm getting the update. Now I want to draw your attention to the very top line in Visual Studio, and it says Georgian Groceries 1 of 1 project, and that means there's only one project opened up right now inside of this Georgian Groceries. So what we're actually going to do is add another project or open up another project. So there's a couple of steps we're going to follow for this, but obviously you've seen this kind of a procedure before. So what we're going to do is just go solution, Georgian Groceries, right click and say add a new project. Okay, and you can see there's a whole bunch of different templates here. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm definitely going to change this to C#. Okay, and I'm going to type in MS test, all one word. Okay, so I'm going to do that search. Okay, and then let's see which test it comes back with. Okay, so you can see there's a couple of different tests. There's MS test test project.net core, and that is in C#. You can see the little icon there. And then there's C# unit test project.net framework, NUnit, XUnit, and I'm sure there's other tests. So what I definitely want, because I specified C# here, what I want is the C# symbol here, MS test test project. Okay, so click that, go to next, and I'm gonna call this one Georgian Groceries tests. Okay, and I'll just continue to save it in the same location. Okay, and I'm going to hit create. Okay, so let's look at this a little bit in detail. So down the bottom you see Georgian Groceries tests, and you see now up here it says Georgian Groceries 2 of 2 projects. Okay, and then down here that's where it appears, and you've got these 2 files. And it looks to me like one of them is open. I'm going to just move that GitHub out of the way. So this one opens this unit test 1 C# class. Okay, so what's happening is it's opening up this unit test 1 class. It looks pretty similar to a normal C# class, except it's got these decorators here. There's a test class and a test method. Okay, and up top it has this reference library here, Visual Studio Test Tools Unit Testing. Okay, so that's what we're starting off with by creating that Georgian Groceries test project. So this is really a test class that we're using, right? And inside that test class, you have test methods. So it's important to understand that there are methods inside of this class. And of course, this decorator implies that they are a very special kind of method. Okay, they're not normal methods that are used for actually doing something in your web application. They're actually meant for testing specifically. So right off the bat, I don't like the name unit test. Okay, so I'm going to go to my Solution Explorer. I'm going to highlight it, right click on it, and I'm going to do a rename. Okay, and this should refactor it. So this will be called Dummies Controller Test. Did I spell it right? Test. I'll put an S. Tests. Yeah. And it says, do you want to perform a rename of this project for all references? And yes, I do. Okay, and just to show that again, I'm going to highlight that there and do a rename. And I'm actually going to remove the S. Okay, because I want you to look on my line 6 that my name here also changes when I do this. Okay, so, and I should be asked, yes, I do want to do this throughout the rest of my code. And there it is. So you can see that this one, it's without the S, and so is that, so that they match. Okay. Now, please understand that the unit test classes must be public. Okay, they must be public. They can't be hidden from the things that you're trying to test with. Okay, you're not you want to make sure that they're not isolated through encapsulation. Okay, so let's talk a minute about naming conventions for the methods that we want to actually test. Okay, so there's two parts to this. There is a what we're testing, and then what is the result that we are expecting. Okay, so it's important that you understand that. Okay, so there's the two parts. There's the what it is that you're testing and what is the result you're expecting. Okay, so in this case, what we're going to do is change this method name to be index returns something. So this will be changed to this. Index is what we're testing, returns something. Okay. So each unit test follows sort of 3 basic steps. Okay. And what they typically are, and I'll put the comment in there for the first one. The steps are typically, the first one being arrange, set up any variables, objects needed for the method and scenario we want to test. Okay, and then the next one is act or execute the method and store the result returned, if any. And then finally, we want to assert or evaluate if the result is as expected. Okay. So those are the 3 basic steps that each unit test typically follows. So arrange, act, assert. So if we go to our dummies controller and we want to test this index, then we actually need to go back and instantiate an instance of the controller. Okay. So to test that index method, we will instantiate an instance of the controller. And we're going to just simply do it this way. Okay, so we'll say var controller equals new dummies controller. Okay, and I think what might be, there's an issue here. Okay, show potential fix. So this error is looking for references. Okay, and you might think, okay, generate class dummies controller in a new file and all that stuff, but we actually have to reference the other project, the Georgian Groceries project. So I'm going to add that reference there. So if for some reason you get a lot of this status bar saying that it's doing something and you're sitting and it's not doing anything, then what you need to do is actually go to your project file. Okay, you need to go into here, into the project, and then go to dependencies right here, right click on that and say add project reference. Okay, you'll click that on and your other project, in my case it's Georgian Groceries, should be here. So you click on that and then you hit OK. And I've already done that because I did actually have a problem. So I've already done that. And then what you're going to do is you'll probably still have the red line under here. You just highlight on that and then you're going to be looking for the reference to the original project, because what you're looking for is to have this line added. Okay, and this is Georgian Groceries.controllers. And you can't just type that in there because the two projects don't know about each other yet. So you have to make sure that Georgian Groceries becomes a dependency of Georgian Groceries test. Really important. So what I'm going to do next in this, because I've got my controller now, is I'm going to do a var result. Okay, and this is our acting, and our step 2 here. And we're going to say controller dot index. Okay, so that's the acting part. And now we're going to do this assert, and it's going to be assert dot is not null. Okay, and inside it will be result. Okay, so we've got this done, and I want to come back to this referencing thing here, because if we go to our dummies controller here, you will see that right here it says one reference. Okay, that this is being referenced now by this particular method call right here, or this actual class. It's being referenced. Okay, so if I actually now want to see the result of this, what I can do is just click on my method and right click it, and down here say run test. Okay, so again, right click, run test, and you can see that it's actually processing the test. You may have to widen out the dialog box that opens up here. Okay, and you can see, you can click these here, open and close those, but you see the big check mark there. Okay, there's a check mark there that the test actually passed, and then you can look at the group summary over on the right side. Okay, so the outcome was that it actually passed the test. Okay, so I'm going to close this, but notice I've got this check mark here now, test passed. So the good news is that this test works, but it's just not entirely useful at all. So we should go now and create another test that has more value to us, much more useful. But at least we tested the testing. So we're going to do one that actually better tests this particular method. Okay, because we're testing the index. And really, I mean, that little dialog box that showed up, that was great, but it doesn't really do much. even if it would have failed, it would have, said that it failed, but it would have just given us a little dialog box. So let's get something more useful. So if I do test, okay, it should be test method that we want in there. Okay, so public void, and we're going to say index loads index view. How about that? Okay, so, again, we want to be descriptive, but we'll say index loads index view. Okay, and just like before, we have to do very similar steps. So, again, I'm going to do this. I'll take this whole section, put that in there. I'm also going to take this section here and put that in. Okay, and then the assert is going to be slightly different. So I'm going to go get this and I'll put it in. But this one is not going to be, is not null. This one is going to be R equal. Okay. And this takes two parameters in R equal. So one is index, okay, is the first parameter. And then it's not just result, it's result dot view name. So the issue here is that this says view name, but when we look at the result, our view is of type iAction result. You can see here, this iAction result is the type for index. So I actually need to do some casting here to make that actually visible. So iAction result is a parent class, and this view, believe it or not, actually inherits from iAction result. So that's why we have to go and do this casting. And the way we're going to do the casting is like this. So I'm going to actually update my comment here. Okay, and we're saying we must cast iAction result to a view result. And the way we do that is we just type in right here. We're just casting, and this is going to be a view result. Okay, and of course I'm getting the error because it doesn't know, it needs this Microsoft ASP.NET Core.MVC reference. Okay, so up at the top, it put that reference in right here. Okay, and you can see now, down here, sorry, right here, that our view name also disappeared, the error that we were getting there. So what I'm asserting is that my view name should be equal to index. Of course, that's a capital I. Should be equal to that view. So if you look, you're saying, I'm asserting, and that's what the word means, that these two things are actually equal. What gets returned to me is equal to the index view, which would be this. Okay. So I could go into my view, test explorer. Okay, this is where this dialog box comes in. And I'm just going to minimize this or move it out of the way. Actually, I'm going to click onto here. I'll right click and say run tests. And then let's see what happens in here. And what you can see is right here, I've got this little red and white X, and it says that it failed. Okay, so all of these, this sort of lack of a check mark, this one here, it actually isn't even showing up properly in this, but you can see that the box there says test fail, or the little circle. And when I click over here to the actual X, you can see that it named it as index loads, index view, that it failed. Okay. And then there's some more information about what's going on in that test. So we actually know that something is wrong because at the beginning of this, we actually did test it out after we made the controller in the view. We went into the actual site and saw that this was working. So we can actually start to make better code by doing this unit test. Okay, and trying to anticipate problems that are going to happen. So what I'm going to do is actually now inside that unit test, I'm going to put a breakpoint. Okay, so go to the far bar there, just click on it. And so on my line 30, I'm adding a breakpoint. So I'm going to go right click this and I'm going to say debug test. Okay. So debug test. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to step over that. I'll go to the button that says step over or F10. And this is going to take us to this assert line, R equal. And so if I click on that, you can see that there's this little dialog that's going to pop out in a second. There it is. So if I look at it, it says result view name is null. Okay, so it's not giving me anything that I want it to give me. Okay, even better, if I basically put my mouse over this word result, you'll see that it gives me this line of code, right? And there's a little drop down arrow on the left side. So if you look at this, we have a whole bunch of things that are empty, but the most important one is that this view name is actually a null. Okay, so there's nothing there. So even though we said it worked, according to this test, there's no view there right now. So I'm going to stop that and let's go to our dummies controller. And this is what it's talking about. It's saying that this view is null. So there's something we can do to be more explicit about this. Okay, because it's saying that this view is a null. And I also want you to notice that there are two references now, and there's also, one failure and one pass. Okay, so it's a, 50%. So what's going on here is that this method here, this view, okay, right now, and if I hover the mouse, you see that there's this note. Okay, it says that there's 3 overloads. So view result controller.view has 3 different overloads. Okay, so what it means is that we're reusing the same sort of a code in many different ways, but we're not being explicit enough to say which particular view that we're looking for. Okay, so the way that we're going to solve this is inside these brackets. We're going to just tell it which view that we want to see explicitly. We're saying return the index view. Okay, so we get away with it. We know that it works because we've already shown this view previously, and we know that it works, but it's not explicit enough. So let's go look at a different example here, right? Here's an IA action result details. Here's an example where the return view product that wasn't overload. Here's another one here that looks pretty good. Here's one in our create. Okay, we've just got view. There's nothing explicit inside of that return value. See if there's any other ones. Okay, here's a good one here. Again, here's another good one. But this is the issue. We want to be more explicit with what we put inside that return value. Okay, so another thing that we can do now that I've saved this, and you see that it highlights, and for this particular method, there's been two tests run. So I can actually click on that and run all, and I can get it to run all the tests. And then we're going to see if we actually pass the next test. So there, it changed to a check mark and it says 2 of 2 passing. Okay, so that's really good. And then you can see that our test explorer has actually cleared itself out. And of course, now you can go in and you can see the tests that have been run just by clicking on. Might be a little different for you right now because I've already clicked on it. But if you click on one of these, you'll be able to actually see which tests. So if you notice right down here, dummies controller test, and it shows these two, and it says over on the right that 2 have passed. So just to be clear, you know, if you're running other unit tests, okay, just don't forget that you need to be explicit when you're looking for that particular test to run. Okay, I'm giving it the explicit name that I want it here. And if you notice, it also matches here. I'm going to take that breakpoint off. Okay. So I do want to make one general comment right now. When you do your project, or if you start yours and you're doing this, then I would say right off the bat, once you create that second project in there, probably a good idea to open it up. Okay. Sorry, into your dependencies and add your project references. Okay, so, and then you can tie to whatever project that you're actually in fact trying to test. So I think as a practice, it's probably a good idea to do that right away. Okay. So it's an important step that you don't want to miss because it'll get you stuck for a long time. Okay, so I'm back in my products controller and we're down again at this create method here. And the first thing we did do on our first unit test was we tested out this view. Okay. Now, what I do need to do is start thinking about this one here, this view data. Okay, so now we're going to move on to view data, and I'll go back to my dummies controller. And right above our return view, we're going to do this something else. So it'll be view data, and in there will be square brackets, quotes, message. Sorry. Message. And we're going to just put out some sort of a message anyway. This is a message from the controller. Okay, that's all we're gonna type on that line. So now we've created an additional outcome inside this method. So we can actually go ahead and unit test for that. So we're gonna go in and create a second unit test, and that one's gonna be basically modeled like this. And what I'm gonna call this one is index view data as message. Okay, so there is a message here. Sorry, the index view does have an actual message, meaning that there's an output. Okay, so I'll save that, and our range is going to be the same. Okay, the first line, we can even do this. We'll just copy and paste this. So a range is going to be the same. Okay. And our act is going to be the same as well. Okay, so this will be all the same. Okay. And the one thing that's going to be slightly modified, but very, very similar, is the way we do our assert. Okay, so I'll put the assert comment in there. Okay, and the way this will be is assert dot r equal, similar to the one above, but we'll do the two parameters in a slightly different way. Okay, and this one is going to be this is a message from the controller. Okay, and it's probably got to be identical to the other message that we have. So let me go and get that one. So this is a message from the controller, and I'm going to make sure that it's absolutely identical because we're trying to compare that they're actually equal. Okay, and it looks like I did it. And then result dot view data. Okay, so the one above was view name, but in this case we're looking to do view data, and it'll be square brackets, quotes. Okay, and it'll be message. Now I'm looking for message. Okay. Okay, and a semicolon at the end. So let's go look at this. Make sure I spelled it identically the same, which I think I did. I always worry that I'm spelling massage versus message. And you never want to tell your boss that, hey, I sent you a massage. Okay, so anyway, hope you laughed. So I'm going to save this, go to here, right click, and run test. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it seems to have passed. Index view data has message, has passed. Okay, and we've also got the check mark here. All right, and we've got 3 out of 3 have passed on this particular test. Okay, and okay, we're good. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now is stop doing the dummies controller test. Okay, because for what we really want to do with our particular application is we want to test the controllers, not the models, not the views. We're not going to do that in this particular lesson. So we're going to stick to the controllers, and just to go through the process, we're actually going to do our products controller. We're going to do some things inside products controller. So it'll be within products, we'll look at index and details. Okay, so I think that's what we're going to test out for the remainder. So let's get into that right now. So I will go into where I've been doing all this testing in my Georgian groceries test. Let me minimize a lot of this stuff. Okay. And I'm going to do right click on Georgian groceries test. And I'm going to do add a class. And this is just going to be a general class. Okay. And I'm going to call this one, let's see, products. Okay. Products controller test. And this is just going to be a class for testing of methods that are happening inside of our products controller. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit add. Okay. Okay, so now that we have that, two vital things that must happen, and I mentioned this before. Okay, if we look at this one here, we must have this test method. Okay, that must be there. Okay, and the second thing is the class must be public. Okay, if it's not public, it can't be seen. Okay, save. And obviously I've got this this issue here, because if you look at the other ones, we go to the top, this reference here is missing. Okay, so we need to get the unit testing test tools referenced in there. So if I go to show potential fixes, is it this one here? Unit testing. Okay, so there it is up top, and that error should disappear if I selected the right one. Visual Studio, test tools, unit testing. Yeah, that's the one. Sorry, that shouldn't say test method. I selected the wrong one. It should be test class. Okay, not test method. Don't do what I just did. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to declare a DB connection, mock list of products, and instance of products controller at the class level. Okay, and if I do, so private, this is going to be private. Application should be application DB context. I don't see it. Okay, so it's private application DB context. It doesn't recognize that right now. So we'll make the reference, and it's the first one here, to the data. Okay, and you get the reference up here at the top, and the error goes away. So the next thing we're going to do, and I've got to create this a list of mock products to do this testing, and it doesn't recognize the products. So we're going to reference here models. Okay, and models came up here on line 2, and that error goes away. So I'm also going to create an instance of our products controller. Okay, and of course, what's this reference? Controllers. Okay. I do want to add an important note in here. Okay, is that we're going to arrange the objects globally for the sake of doing this unit test. Okay, so all of this stuff is global that we can keep referencing back to so that we can use it throughout the rest of the testing. And we're now going to create our test initialize. Okay, and this is going to run automatically before every unit test in here. Okay. And we're going to call this next method, we're going to call it test initialize. Sorry. And in here, what do we have to do? We've got to set the, let's do it this way. We'll set the options for and create an in-memory database instead of using SQL Server. Okay. So a challenge that we have with our products controller is that the products controller uses dependency injection. Okay, and which is this right here in products controller, right here on my line 21. We're using this, dependency injection in here. So we can't just go to the new thing here and do like what we've done in the past, where we just try to create this kind of a scenario. Okay, where we just say var controller equals new, and then I want to say like products controller test or anything, or products controller. Okay, I can't really do that. It's not going to work because of the dependency injection. So what we have to do, so it would fail if we tried to do this controller equals new products controller, right? It requires, this products controller has that dependency injection, and it requires the database connection. So this is not going to work. This would definitely fail. Okay. And with unit testing, we're actually trying to separate the web application from the database. Okay. So, in one sense, we would have to do the dependency injection, but we really in the end don't want to do that because we want to separate those two things entirely. And so if we were to try to test the application with the database, that would be a different type of a test altogether. That wouldn't be unit testing. That would actually be called something, it's called integration testing. And that's not what we're about today. So we've got to do this in a very different way so that we can sort of avoid or bypass the integration testing kind of construct. And if I wanted to do integration testing, then that means I would end up having to test other things. So I'd automatically have the our SQL database. Then I would have to do integration testing on Azure. Then I'd have to do it on Stripe. And then the two OAuths that we had done with, I think, what was it, Facebook and Google. Okay, so we would have to do integration testing on all of those things, but we're not going to here. But my challenge is, how do I work with my products controller when my products controller actually does want a database object? Okay, so that's a bit of a challenge that we have to overcome here. So in our startup file, it says right here, use SQL Server. Okay, so we don't want to use SQL Server in our particular case. So we want to use some sort of an in-memory sort of setup. So we're going to use an in-memory database. So we're going to mock up a database with some info, and then we're going to use that mock database in place of our SQL Server. So this is what this comment really is about. Okay, we're going to set options and create an in-memory database instead of using SQL, which we would be integration testing instead. Okay, so I hope that makes a little bit more sense of why I'm about to do the things that I'm going to do now. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to say var options equals new. And this one's going to be DB context options, builder. Okay, and it'll be application DB context. Okay, and it doesn't have a reference to this yet, but instead of us use SQL, we're going to say use in memory. Okay, we'll do use in memory, and it's data. Was it database? Yeah, just database. Okay, and in this, I'm just going to use this GUID. Okay. GUID dot new and convert to a string. Okay. Now keep in mind it doesn't have that reference yet, so it doesn't know what's going on. So dot options. Okay, so let's go get this. Hopefully, okay, so it's this entity framework core. Or option builder. Let me look. Yeah, it's entity framework for .NET Core. Right there. Okay. And I've got some sort of memory or some issues here. Let me just go and debug those. And then the next thing I can put in here is the context that I have up on line 17. Okay, so context equals new application DB context, and as a parameter we're going to say options, and finish that off. And I do still get this little error right here, and the issue here is that there's a NuGet package that I have to go and get. Okay, so NuGet package, package manager solutions, browse, and in browse I'm going to look for in memory. Okay, looks like it's right here. So it is this one here, this entity framework core in memory, and I don't need it for Georgian groceries. Okay, so when I click on that, you see this box opens up on the side. So I want it for Georgian groceries tests. And I want you to understand that I don't have version 5 of .NET Core right now. So what I'm going to do is get the latest stable core, or stable version of this. So 5 is too high for me because I don't have the absolutely most up-to-date latest version of core. So I'm going to select 3.1.10 and I'm going to do an install and accept. And let's see. Okay. It looked like that worked okay. Okay, so you can see down the bottom my errors went away here. So if I go back to this, now you can see that it's gone away. Now another issue is, let's go back to this. Okay, and I've got all these other updates. Okay, so what do we have for updates? It's not, oh, because I've got that word in there. So same sort of thing, right? I'm at 3.1.0 here for this Google. So if I want to go in and update my Google, I don't need to go to 5. I can go to the most up to date or stable, which is this one here anyway. Okay, so I don't need to really update that one. It doesn't do me any good, and there's no higher version. Okay, so I'll ignore that one. And I could go through all of these and figure out which one I want, but I'm just going to actually leave them alone. Let me just check this one. What's the latest stable version? It's the same. So all of these are actually up to date, but it's saying that it's not up to date because 5 is available for all of them, but I can't do an update on those because I don't have a more updated version of .NET Core. All right. Hope that made sense. And so when I go down to the bottom into our Georgian Groceries tests project, I can go into my packages here and see that it did in fact install. Okay, so let me close out the dependencies. Okay, good. And so the next step in all this is going to be to just create some mock data and then add it to the in-memory database. Okay. So we'll do one category and 3 separate products. Okay, so one category, 3 products, and then we're just basically faking our way through this data. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to say var, not car, var category is going to equal new category. Okay, and in my brackets, it's going to be category, category ID will be, let's say equal to 700. Okay, 700. And then comma name is going to equal, all right, we'll call it category 700. Okay, close that off. And then below that, we're going to say context dot categories dot add. Okay, and in our add, it's going to be category. And then under that, it's going to be context dot save changes. Okay, and that's a method call with no parameters. Okay, so that's the category bit. Next is going to be our products. So we'll do products dot add, and here we're gonna, I don't know where the star came from, new product. Okay, brackets, and in here we're gonna say let's see, ID, product ID is going to equal, let's say 37. Name is going to be equal to, let's say, product 37. Okay. And then let's do price is going to equal 37, or okay, let's say 37.37. And then finally the category is going to be category ID is going to be equals 700. Okay, and we'll close that off at the end. Oh, yeah. I knew that was going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create 2 more of these. And I'm not going to type it in because that's mind numbing for me and you. And we're going to change these. So this will be 64. This will be 56. And change these values, 64.64 and 56.56. And they're all going to be category IDs of 700. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And the last thing, couple things I still have to do though is I have to do this for loop. Okay, so that we can cycle through this. So it's going to be a for each. Okay, and it'll be var p in products. And let me move down a little bit so you can see it. And this is context dot products dot add, and that's a method call, and inside that method call we're going to say p. Okay, and then just outside of that we're going to do the save changes again, context dot save changes. Okay, and then the last thing I need to do now is controller equals new products controller like this, and in here it's context, and that's that. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff for that particular unit test. We should basically, all I'm trying to do here is I created a category and I created 2 products in it, and I'm using the for each to try to cycle through and save those products. Okay, I'm gonna just add one little comment in there. So the reason we're doing this is so we now instantiate controller and pass the populated in-memory database to it. Okay, so that's what that line is for. So when we look at our products controller, you know, and we're talking about the fact that this is really what we're trying to test is this index. Okay, we talked about earlier needing at least a minimum of 2. Okay, and this is really what we're trying to test right here. Okay, so in this particular case, we've got the categories, but we have a list of products. Okay, so that's really what we're about, trying to test this out. So when we talk about what's going on in here, there's probably 2 tests right off the bat that we should be looking at. So we're going to test for if the index view loads correctly. Okay, and the second thing is, does it show a list of products, the product data with the category? Okay, so it's funny to say this because when we actually look at the website, you're like, yep, okay, it does that. It's showing me my products and it's showing me the actual category in this products page. But we really need to do a unit test on this. Okay, because again, what happens? I come back a year from now and I don't know what's going on. I make changes and I broke it and it doesn't work anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm creating these unit tests to try to prevent that, not today maybe, but my future self, if I ever have to come back and work on this again. So definitely I would say of the 2 tests we want to run, let's start at the view. And we can go back to our dummies controller test and really take this first one here, this index loads index view. Okay, so I'm going to take this, bring that over to here. Okay. So keep in mind that the arrange is all done in the test initialize. So if we go back to here and we look at, okay, what is arrange? Okay, we're basically doing this new constructor. Okay, and so we've already got that done in this whole sort of test initialization, like this whole piece up here is really what that's going to be. That takes the place of that. Okay, so the next thing, it'll be still similar to the last one we did. Okay, so we'll have our act and assert. So our act is going to be var result is going to equal view. Do we have view result? No. View result. Okay, and then on the other side of that is going to be controller dot, sorry, not comma, dot index. Okay, and then dot result. Okay, and of course you're wondering about this here. It obviously doesn't know what that reference is, so it is this first one here, ASP netcore.mvc. Okay, so we'll add that, and this was just the casting like we did the last time. Okay. And for the final one, I'm just going to go back to the dummies one, and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to copy that and put that in there for our assert. Okay. So there. Okay, save that. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this little piece right here, this result. Okay, and that is because when we go to here, you see we've got this little asynchronous task, this iAction result. But if we go to our dummies controller, you see that there's no asynchronous anything. It's just your raw iAction index. So it's different. I've got this issue right here to deal with. And the way we actually do that is, you know, I could have just previously, if you look at the other one, we just kind of capped it off here at dot index. But here, because of that asynchronous thing, I need to add the dot result. And that's why I put it in there. Okay, so if I don't have that, so for example, if I take this out, we should be getting this error. And down here you get cannot convert type system, blah, 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 task, blah, blah. Either way, to get that to go away, what we're going to do is just add the dot result. Okay. So what it is ultimately saying is that this is the result of that asynchronous task right here. Okay, so that's why it's an important thing to have in there. I'm adding that dot result just to say, okay, send me the results of what is happening with this little piece right here. So that's why it's there. So I've just added a little note there that says, note the difference between asynchronous task iAction result and iAction result. Okay. So there is this one thing that I do want to show you how to do, or actually use it myself. And it's this thing in your test tab, you go halfway down, it says live unit testing. And I'm going to select start. Okay, so this box actually pops up here. And you can see that it's actually run some tests. So I'm going to do this little drop down arrow right here, and I'm going to say doc as a tabbed document. And so all that did is that popped it up into my normal tabs here. Okay, but you can see that my product controller test has failed. Okay, so I've got 3 that are running and 1 that has actually failed. So when I go to my product controller test, you can see that I've got failures all along the way inside my test. Okay, so we got to get in there and sort of fix those and figure out what's going on. Now, to be clear, you may not have that on community. You probably don't, but with if you've got enterprise, you should have this. Okay, if for some reason seeing all these red boxes and stuff like that causes you anxiety, then just go ahead and turn it off. Okay, so when I go to here, you can actually just stop the test like that. And I'm hoping that, yeah, they all disappeared. Okay, so I'm just going to keep that off to the side in case I come back to it and use it. But for now, I'm going to turn it off, because I will admit that it is a little bit bothersome seeing all that red error stuff on my screen. Okay. So I'm going to turn that off. I turned it on momentarily, but I'll go back. And so we do know that that test failed. And there is one thing, and we've encountered this already before. right? And that was with the error that we encountered the last time we did the dummies controller. And it was this issue right here, is that we explicitly said that the view we want back was index. But when we go to our products controller and we return the view, we actually don't do that. Okay, so one thing that we can do is now go in there and actually do that. We can make the first parameter our index. So now with my unit test actually running, you can actually see now there's the green check marks now that I've added the index to the side. Okay, so I've just been running the index. And then when I run it again, you can see, you know, the other way I could do this is if I go to this and I right click, I just right click on there and run the test. Okay. Some reason that one shows that it's not running, but it actually is now. So I've got 4 of 4, all of them are running, and you can see now that the check mark is populated. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that this actually worked the first time. I want you to know that I, in fact, didn't change anything, but I redid a few things over and over until it actually started to work, if that makes any sense. It's just a little bit buggy. That's all I can say. I'm trying to create a tool to stop bugs, but the tool itself might be a little tiny bit buggy. Anyway, not a really big deal. We got it to work, okay? And everything is all the tests are 4 out of 4, okay? So now that I've actually done the test for the view, I want to run a test now for the data. Okay, so I want to test to see if we're showing that list of data or product data and in the proper categories. So this is again going to be a test method. Okay, and down below it'll be a public void. And I'm going to call this one index returns product list. Okay, and that's a method. And you know, first one we're going to do is act. Okay, act. And what are we going to do? So var result is going to equal what do we want to view result, and then controller dot index, nothing inside the index, and then result. Okay, so that's the act. Now we want to do the assert. Assert's going to be a little bit different. Okay, I want to go ahead and put this comment in there for the assert, because this one's slightly a little different. So we're going to compare the model from the index method call to the list of mock products. Okay, so we're going to, we want to make sure that this is the list of mock data that we're looking for. Okay. And so in this, we're going to say collect assert dot r equal. And this method's call is going to have a couple parameters. So it's going to be products dot order by, and inside the order, you know, our typical p lambda p dot name. Okay, and outside of that we'll say to list. It's a method, and then comma model. Okay, and end that off. Okay, what's the issue here? Show potential fix. It's looking for which model to select. Okay. So we're losing this reference to the model, and if I try to go on the show potential fixes, it's going to look for something, but it's actually not there. It's because I have to go back up into my act Okay, and this is going to be our list. And it's these angle brackets. So product, and here's model. Okay, and that model is going to equal to, oops, sorry. List. Okay, and then angle brackets again here, and this is product. And on the outside of the angle now, we're going to say result dot model. Okay, and finish that off. Now, of course, now our error does go away because it was looking for this line of code right here. Okay, the really good thing is I've got my testing unit on, and you can see that the unit test has been working as I've been creating it. Okay, so that's a nice thing to actually have happen. It's better than a bunch of anxiety-inducing red X's. So if you're actually wondering why did I do all this order by and to list and all that stuff, let's go back to the original thing, the products controller. We're trying to do this test to make sure that it's actually running, but it's kind of got to be synchronized. Okay, so what we've done in here is we said, okay, do an order by its name. So if we had that out of order and it was trying to do this test, that would actually end up throwing an error. Okay, and I recognize that this set of products, which is all of these up here, is a different set of products that we have actually on the website right here. Okay, but we're still doing an order by, and they're all alphabetically ordered. Okay, so you still have to, you still have to make sure that they're all in the same ordered by. Okay, and then this is a to list asynchronous, and which is what we've got up here too. Okay, and down here we've just got this to list. We didn't do the asynchronous stuff. We just created the order by. So we're making sure that we're synchronizing it, what we expect the outcome to be. Okay, it's not that we're comparing the data specifically itself. We're comparing what the output should be to our screen. We seem to have all the unit tests that I want to do with this index. And the next one I want to move on to is going to be details. So it's the one right below, okay, right here. And just really quickly looking at it, you know, we got a lot of stuff that's going on in there. And if you really think about, if you look at this code really carefully, you say, how many tests would I actually want to run on this? So right off the top of my head, I'm saying, okay, I see an if. Okay, there's something that's going on. Here's another if something is going on there, and there's a return. Okay, so there's something going on there. Maybe there's something in here, I don't know. But then there's, you know, some more returning to do. So right off the bat, I've got stuff that's going on. So let's look at the very first one. So I think there's probably at least 4 that we're going to do in here. And so if I look at this and I say, what's the first part of this particular details? So it's ID. So if my ID is null, then I say not found. So when I go to my website, you know, I'm in products, but let's say I go to details. Okay, and it's slow because it's on Azure right now. And you can see here this details, okay, and it's 11. Okay, so there's something there. So what it means is if it's null, if my ID is null, in our case it's 11, then we return this not null. Okay, so that's one thing that we can do. But what happens if I go and I take this out? Okay, details. Okay, maybe I'll put the slash back in. I don't know. Don't think it mattered. But what's happening is I'm getting this 404. Okay, so it's not really the best way I could have done the test here. So what I want to do is probably do a test in there to handle that a little bit better. Okay, because that's clearly giving me a 404 error. And what's really frustrating is that for the most part, 99 out of 100 people are not going to know what the hell that is. It's just going to leave you hanging there and you're going to be like, what's a 404? Okay, so let's see if we can do a little bit better. So if we look at the next sort of condition that we face, it's right in here, this if. And what this is saying is that, hey, if there's no product, then return a null. Okay, or if it's the product is equal to no, then return not found. Okay, so then what? And that's going to look something like this. So if I go to details, you can see that's 11, but let's say 1000. Okay, so I don't have that 1000 product, right? So this is where that particular condition comes into play. Okay, so I don't have a product that is associated with ID 1000. Okay, so we're going to need a test for those. So the two other tests are that it actually loads in the right product. Okay, that's a test that we can do. And then what about the view? Okay, are we actually returning the proper view? Okay, so if we were asking for product 11, we're not getting instead product 12, 13, or 14. We're getting the product that we want in that particular view. So, you know, we've got to make sure we're getting the right view and we're getting the right things inside that view. So one thing for sure I definitely don't like, and a probably an easy thing to do, as opposed to getting something like this, you know, this sort of pathetic little thing, we can actually go in and change that a little bit too. Okay, so if you go to your shared, right down here, we actually do get a error page. Okay, and it does have some information on it that we can maybe go in and do some work on. Okay, so I'm in this errors thing, and I'm going to go into this line 9 to 14. I'm actually going to take it out because I don't need it. So you may have seen this stuff all along, and you know, it's been in this folder all this time. We just haven't really come in and done anything with it at all. Okay, so yeah, I've seen this error. I saw this recently, just because I was transferring everything over to my Azure, and so I was seeing this information here. Okay, so let's keep going. Now what I'm going to do is go back to my test, sorry, not there, my product controller, and for the first one here, I'm going to just comment this out. Okay, and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to say return view, and inside that view I'm going to say in quotations error. Okay, that is kind of one thing that we could go ahead and do. I could also go into shared, right click, do add and view, and we'll do an empty view. And what am I going to call this one? Let's say 404 response. Okay. And we get this view right here. And I could just go in here and do a H1. Okay. Sorry. The page you were looking for cannot be found. Okay. That's all. Save that. Okay, I'm going to change the name of that. I don't like response. I'm just going to rename and just going to call it 404. Okay. There. Okay, it changed. And I'll go back to here, and instead of an error, what I'll do is just do 404. Okay. And I think I could probably do the exact same thing down here in this one. Okay, instead of not found, and then I will comment this out. Save. And so that's what it would look like. Okay, I've got my product details. I didn't specify a number. Let's say this. Okay, that, and if I take that 11 out of there, okay, that's the one that we created. Sorry, the page you're looking for cannot be found. That's fine. There's this, I've referred to it before. He's really good. Online tutorials down here. This is his YouTube page, but it's animated 404 text typography using HTML and CSS only. I thought it was kind of neat. A little bit loud. But anyway, I always thought that that was kind of neat the way he had done that with his page. So go ahead and check that out if you want to update yours somehow. Okay, I'll kill that thing. But it's a pretty neat thing that he does with the inside that video. Okay, let me close that. Yeah, go ahead and do that if you want to. And his name is Online Tutorials or something like that. Really good channel. So getting back into here, we're in details, and I'm going to copy this and paste it. Because if you think about what we did in the past, and I'll give you a really quick hint, right there. Is it there? No. Right here. There's your hint. It's on that line. Okay, and if you guessed it right there, we should probably change that return as well. So we're saying return the products, the view with the products, and I think what we should do, because we know we're kind of going to have to do this anyway, right, for the unit testing, is just put in details. So this is going to help us with the unit testing when we write it. So we might as well get ahead of it and do it now. Okay. So we go back to our products tester controller test, and we're going to write these 4 tests. Okay, we want to make sure that we're getting the 404 errors back. We want to make sure that we're doing getting all the other things that basically we talked about. So I'm going to stop blabbing, and let's get into this and start writing those 4 different tests. Okay, before I get into that though, I want to kind of segregate this out a little bit. I can take all of my test methods, like this one here, and I can do this thing, and I can put them into regions so that they're specific only to our index. Okay, so in this particular case, because index is what we tested previously, so I'm going to do this hashtag region, and it's going to be called index. Okay, and then down at the bottom of that, under the last one, we can do hashtag. Oh, sorry, hashtag end region and index. Okay, so it's just a good sort of tool or a good practice to have it in there, so that you segregate those kind of clumps of testing blocks that you want to keep. So I'll keep that there. All right, so now I want to go down to the next sort of block that we want to do. Now the other thing that I did is I actually highlighted all of that, and then I just hit the tab button, and it moved it over slightly to the right. Okay, and of course these regions are optional. They're not mandatory, but it does help you if you want to expand or contract these regions. And you know that I've got a test in here just for index. Okay, and when I hover the mouse over it, it shows me everything that's inside of that. Okay, so if you want to change real estate on your screen, that's one good way of doing it. Okay, so let's go down to the next region. So now obviously I'm going to go down one more line, and I'm going to say region, and I'm going to call this one details, and right below that it's going to be end region, and of course details again. Okay, and I'm going to write everything inside of here. So the first one I'm going to call this one is sorry, I got this spare bracket somewhere. Okay, the first one I'm going to call is this details no ID returns a 404. Okay. All right, I don't know what happened with my bracket, but that's okay. I'll fix it after. Okay, so that's the first one I'm going to do. And right off the bat, we're going to do act. Okay, that shouldn't be cap locks. That's okay. And what I want for that one is a var result equals same as before, almost very similar. View result is what I'm looking for. View result, and then controller dot details. And in this method, I want it to say null, not skull. I don't know what that means. So null, and then dot result. Okay, so that's the first part of that. And then we want to do assert. Okay, and in our assert, we're going to say assert dot r equal, and in that bracket, we're going to say, we're going to call 404, and now you know why I changed the name of that. 404, and then result dot view name. Okay, and let's end that off. So if you're wondering why I passed the null, it's because if we actually get a null, then we have a 404 error. If we actually have an ID, then there's no error. So that's why I'm doing it in this way. And you can see so far, because I'm actually running the test. Okay, it's actually running, and you can see that it's actually passing that test as we go along. Okay. So this next test that I want to do is going to almost be identical, but I want to make a couple of changes. Okay, so I'll copy that. I'll go down one line and paste that in there. And I've got to make a couple of changes. And what I'm going to change is not details, no ID. I'm going to change this to details invalid returns 404. Okay, and in there, the result is going to stay the same. So almost that whole line stays the same, except for now, I'm going to put in a number. Okay, I'm going to put in a 6. Okay, and so let's look at this comment here. Okay, so if in my act, I'm going to say use any ID but 376456, as these are all valid IDs in the memory database. So remember up here, I've got these IDs 376456. So I'm going to test everything. I don't want these ones here. Okay. And what else might I need to change? So it looks like the bottom line looks all fine, the same to me. And you can see what's happening here is, again, the unit test is passing. I'm getting the green check mark on the side. Now let's go ahead and see if I change that to 37. What's going to happen? Don't know if it's going to change anything. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I got my error. Okay, so now I want to go back to 6. That 6 is a totally random number. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take this. I'm going to copy this test again. So copy and paste it in there. And obviously I need to change some of the stuff. I can't have the methods the same exact way. This one here, I'm actually going to change this whole thing to say details valid ID loads details. Okay, so what else might I need to want to change in here? I think let's do 64. So if I put 64 in there. Okay, so details valid ID loads details view. Okay, so if the ID it's a valid ID loads, then go with the view. Now what else are we going to need here? So clearly I don't need to see a 404. I don't want a 404. What I want is details. Okay, so let's go to here. Okay, and let's see what happens to our unit test on the left side of our screen. So there, that works. So right now, we've got 3 of them done already. This next one will be a little bit more involved, but it won't be too bad at all. But let's go ahead and try that one out. Okay, one more time, I'm going to go and copy this. Okay, copy, go down, paste, and I'm going to change the name of this, obviously, to be details valid ID. Okay, and it returns matching product. So this will be returns matching product. Okay, and the first line here, we're going to leave this result. That looks fine to me. There's nothing there that I need to actually go in and change. Okay, but when we get down to here, my assert are equal. What I want to do is confirm that I'm getting that matching product. Okay, so there's a couple ways I can do this, but the first thing I need to do, because I know I'm going to be dealing with my models, okay, and I'm going to say again, because we've been through this before, var model is going to be equal to product and result dot model. Okay, so we need that. And so for the next thing that I want to do down here, I want to change this because I want to actually return my product. So if I go to our products, and in here, this is part of an array. I'm going to say 1. And then instead of this result, all this stuff here, I want this to be model. Okay, model. And that should pass my test. Let's see what's going on. Okay, good. This passed the test as well. Now I want to go back out to my actual controller, and you see here, because I've done the last one, I created this 4th test method. Let's go back out here, and you can see it's got 3 of 4 passing with a green check mark. I'm just going to click on that and then do a run all and make sure that I actually do in fact pass 4 out of 4, and it looks like I do. So all 4 of those tests have actually passed. So let's go back, and you can see with the green arrows, obviously, right? Okay, so again, you know, this whole idea here is that we want to get a single model back, and we need to cast it as a product. Okay, so all this stuff up here. Okay, that's what we're trying to cast it to, is that single product. Okay, and there, and then it's R equal to. Okay, so is product 1 in there equal. Okay, so just to clarify that again too, if you look at what number 64 is, what's number 64? Okay, up here, 64 is our 1 that takes the position of 1 in our array. Okay, so if I were to say 37, then down here should be actually 0. Okay, we're going to get an error in a second. Okay, but if I change this to 37, that should match. Okay, it should fix it. There it is. Okay. So before I go, there is something I want to show you. I didn't show it to you before because it depends on the version that you have. I don't know for sure that you would have this if you're in community. But if I go up to the test tab and I go analyze code coverage for all tests, what happens is it's running the test here. Okay, and I'll let it do its thing. Okay, let me just close this down, and you see this window down here. It says code coverage results. Okay, and I can drop it down, and you can see covered blocks, covered percent by percentage, and this DLL. The thing I want to show you is that if I click on this little button, it looks like a bunch of bricks, show code coverage coloring. So what this is saying is, let's go somewhere where it's not actually covered. Okay, let's go to here. Okay, so you see I hope you can see the difference in the color here. This is more of an orangey, yellowy color. But this blue, what this demonstrates is that all of this code in here is actually covered by a unit test. Okay, and that it does in fact pass the unit test. So what we've done is if you're actually in here and you're doing this, you can run that if you have enterprise version and put the colors on there, and then you can go and just visually look at your code and say, okay, I haven't done a unit test for any of these things. Okay, so anyway, that's probably as much as I'm going to do in this particular video, and I just wanted to show you, give you an introduction of this. It is important stuff for you to be at least familiar with or be aware of. Hopefully you can implement it. And the other thing I like is I just wanted to let you know, you can change the views of these 404 errors, okay? So little stuff like that with your debugging. So just please, the one takeaway I want you to understand is you're not doing this just for today, for now. You're actually doing all of this work for your future self. Okay, and you have two options. You can try to do all this stuff ahead of time before you start implementing, or you can write it all and then come back after and do all the unit testing, so that in the future, when your customer or your client asks you to fix this, you have at least some sort of a logical starting point to do that. Okay, so I have actually pushed all of that stuff up to GitHub. Hopefully if you're on my GitHub, you can go in there and find some value in what we've done here. Don't just honestly take mine and use it in yours. You have to understand what the heck's going on here. So what we've done today, you can see we haven't really done too many unit tests. Okay, this is in the code coverage results from up here, this analyzing your code. You can see all of the things in here, the methods that we tested, the different things that we've done, and it tells you how much of that percentage is covered. Okay, and what are the covered code blocks. Anyway, there's some good stats in there. All I would say is, if you're watching along, go ahead and do this stuff and get familiar with it, because it's really, really going to help you 6 months from now. Maybe you don't see the value now, but later in the future, when your customer makes changes, this is going to really come in handy later. All right. So anyway, I'm going to conclude the video and thank everybody for watching. In next video, I might do one little thing with some APIs. We'll see. Anyway, have a good week and we'll see you next time.